Hey everyone, welcome back to Books Are My Third Place, your literary lifestyle haven.
I'm so excited to be kicking off a new set of interviews with a dear friend and one of my favorite creators on Booktok, Zoranne. She's also someone that I would trust any recommendation that she gives. So keep that in mind because I'll be asking for some recs. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I was not prepared for all the nice words you were going to say. So thank you. I'm super happy to be here and I'm so glad we finally got this scheduled because this has been like in the making for months.
It has, yeah. I think oh my gosh, yeah, like last year we talked about doing it. So to kick things off, oftentimes with a lot of like bookish creators or any creator, I feel like people don't really necessarily know the person behind the screen other than a few seconds that we get to see people on videos. So what originally got you into reading?
I've always been a reader. Like my favorite class in school was always like language arts. I always loved silent reading time. I was always checking out books from the library. I always got books as presents for Christmas and birthdays, whatever I could get my hands on. Like I always wanted to read. So I guess you could say, yeah, I've always been a reader and I just never stopped. But I do feel like I had kind of like almost like a renaissance in when COVID hit. When I got to college, I wasn't able to read as much or dedicate as much time to it because I was like studying and doing college things and getting my degree.
Yeah.
And then once COVID hit, I was like, oh my God, I can read 100 books a year again. Let's go.
Right. Do you feel like you have any influential author from your childhood that you really loved?
Oh my God. I like at this point, like I don't really remember the author. I read a lot of Magic Treehouse. I remember reading a lot of Kate DeCamelo, so like The Tale of Despero and Because of Winn-Dixie. I love the Geronimo Stilton books.
I don't think I know those.
Oh my, they're like I think Geronimo Stilton was like a mouse detective or he was a rat. But yeah, I remember all of those.
Young Zoranne reading, so not as much fantasy.
No, I was a contemporary girl for
Okay.
the longest time.
And what got you into fantasy? Or do you remember like what was your first fantasy book?
Honestly, off the top of my head, I want to say it was like Percy Jackson. I remember
I still have not read those, and I feel so bad.
we need to
read them.
rectify that.
I know.
I remember reading those like as they were like coming out in middle school. And then ever since each year, like as like sequential books have come out and like across his different series, I kept reading them and I'm like 25 now. And I'm like 20 books deep into Rick Riordan's universe and I can't stop.
Well, okay, so speaking of fantasy, with what in your mind makes a perfect fantasy book?
That is such a good
It's a hard one.
question. And I feel like I've got so many different favorite series and favorite books across like fantasy and I feel like each one does something like really, really well. And for me, it's got to have either a really compelling main character or a set of characters.
Mm-hmm.
I love a great blend of plot and character development. A really cool magic systems, really great. I don't have like a checklist per se when like I'm reading a new fantasy book and I'm just like, does it have this, and this, and that equals greatness? But I feel like there's always something. For me, it's usually the characters that really pull at my heartstrings and make me like give me like a favorite thing. And oftentimes when I have like a new favorite series, it gives me like a new experience that I haven't had before. Because I know like sometimes you can read like there's obviously like a set of tropes you can read from and just like, oh yeah, so like you can have like young farm boy finds out he's the chosen one. Or you can have like an enemies to lovers arc and like so we've read those time and time again, but I feel like when an author does something either like new with that plot device or whatever and they do it really well and it makes me feel like that I'm like discovering it for the first time. That makes me really excited and that's grounds for a new favorite book. So I definitely like feeling like I'm reading something novel and new.
Yeah. So I feel like we bonded a little bit over our love of murderous mummies, as we like to call them.
We did.
So aside from Orca, who I know you love just as much as I do, who are some other ones that you would recommend to others or that you love?
God. I've got a list prepared.
Okay. I love it.
First is Matsuda Misaki from The Sword of Kaigen by M.L. Wong. Then I've got Esun from the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. God, they're so good. I think about Misaki from The Sword of Kaigen every single day.
I have it sitting on my shelf. I need to read it. I'm so excited.
Okay, I'll stop freaking out. Then there's Call Shay and there's Wen from the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee.
Mm-hmm.
They're not mommies in book 1. They're murderous through the entire series, but they're not mommies yet. But they will become mommies, and I feel like that's okay to say because
that counts.
Yeah, it counts, and you can anticipate them being mommies. I also love Cersei from Game of Thrones. I feel like I gotta mention her.
Yeah.
Then we've also got like Amina from The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. Those are just the ones off the top of my head.
As a creator, like, what was that moment where you were like, oh my gosh, what have I done? Like, what's happening? Did you have a viral moment? Like, what?
I do. It is a moment. Yeah. So the moment where I was like, oh my God, what have I done? That's a great way to put it, by the way. It was one of my first viral videos where I was like talking about like the only books I had ever given 5 stars. And like I was being super dramatic. Like, I have never ever given any other book 5 stars besides these 7 books. And one of those books that I mentioned was An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. Mm-hmm. And Hank saw that video and he stitched that video. And his book, An Absolutely Remarkable Thing, proceeded to like sell out on Amazon and like every other retailer.
I feel like I remember this.
Yeah. That was my, like, what the hell moment. And then like, Hank followed me on TikTok. He DM'd me, and he said that he wanted to send me, like, a care package. And he sent me a bunch of stuff. Like, several copies of An Absolutely Remarkable Thing and the sequel, A Beautifully Foolish Endeavor. And then he even sent me a signed copy of John Green's book, his brother, The Anthropocene Reviewed. And so it's signed by Hank and John. And that was my, like, oh my God. And I think that video got me, like, 30,000 followers or something.
Oh my God.
And I was like, wait, am I a book talker now?
It's crazy. Like, I feel like a lot of the bigger book talkers have that moment where it's like they have that video or something that just kind of took off and people loved and stayed because you were still creating, like, amazing content outside of just that one video.
Definitely.
Like, do you have a favorite PR package that you've ever gotten as a book talker?
Yeah, and it's actually one I got last week.
Oh, okay.
Well, I want to know what your answer is after mine.
Okay.
It's a package from HarperCollins for this new fantasy book that came out called Dragon Rider by Taryn Matheru.
That's on my list to read.
Oh my God. So I'm reading it right now and it's great. But inside the box was the book, of course. Mm-hmm. But then they also sent along a 3D printed dragon egg.
Cute.
And inside the dragon egg was a baby dragon. I've never gotten a dragon egg before, and it was like the best thing ever. It felt like it was my birthday when I opened it, because I was like, who sends a dragon egg? And how, I don't know if it could ever be topped, but yeah, it was literally last week I got a dragon egg, and that was the best thing.
So the one I was going to say was the Brandon Sanderson box.
That is also a good one.
I kept the box because it's like wood burned. It was so pretty.
Yeah. I've had people DM me just asking if they could have the box. They didn't even want the stuff that was in it. They just wanted the box.
The box, yeah. Which, by the way, I think I'm going to start Words of Radiance in May. I'm so excited. One. I've been putting it off. I think because it's been hyped so much, and I've loved literally every book that I've read of his. So I know I'm going to love it, but I'm just like, I just need to like sit down to do it.
I feel that way about so many books right now.
It's like a never-ending thing. I'm actually in the middle of cataloging every book I own again. Like, I have my Airtable where I keep track, but I just have been terrible at actually updating it for the last year. So I'm going through and doing inventory, and I've got this shelf left to do, and then like one other bookshelf, and then I'll have it all cataloged, and I am realizing I need to get rid of some books.
Every month I like go through my shelves, and I'm just like, I find new ones.
You never know. You might have like a gem. That's the best, is when I feel like you find a book that you have that's been like sitting on your shelf for years, and then it's a 5-star read, and you're like,
exactly.
Why did I not read this like years ago?
I know, and I hold out for the same reason.
How do you feel like the book community has positively impacted you to start?
Well, one, it's given me a job.
Yeah.
I decided to take the risk almost. I call it a risk because that's what it is, honestly. A year and a half ago. Yeah, about a year and a half ago to do content creation full time. Mm-hmm. I left my job working like a desk job at a hospital. It was like my first job out of college being a big girl.
Yeah.
And it was good for a while. And then I realized that like I needed to do something creative. I needed to do something different every day. And I
Mhm.
was like, you know what? And I was making money at the time on the side doing like content creation for brands and publishers. And I was paying me enough every month to be able to like pay my bills. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to do content creation. And my dad is like, that is the worst idea I've ever heard. And I said, so what? If it's a bad idea, at least I'll be happy. Which
Yeah.
I really recognize is a very privileged thing to be able to do, just be
Yes.
able to quit my job because I was living at home comfortably. I didn't have to pay my dad rent or anything. I didn't have groceries to worry about. So I
Yeah.
like totally recognize like the privilege in being able to do this. And so I've been doing content creation for like a full time, a little over a year and a half. And so yeah, the most positive thing out of Booktok is that it's given me a job and an income to be able to live my life.
And a job that you love. Like
It is
something
a job that I
you
love, and it's literally my dream job. And now it's like, and I know we'll get into it, but afforded me the opportunity to run like a publishing imprint, which is
Yeah.
like beyond like something I never would have guessed. It was not on any bingo card ever.
know? So speaking of, you're a publisher, which is like so exciting and so cool.
Yeah.
Tell me about your bindery journey. Like, how did this come about? How did you end up creating this imprint? Like, what was that journey like?
My bindery journey. So it's been live online for not even a year technically. I announced like bindery publicly like last August, I want to
Okay.
say. Secretly, I've been a part of it since for almost 2 years now, since like last May.
My gosh.
And I ran, like, one day I got an email from this guy named Matt. And he goes, hey, Zoranne, I'm this, that, and the other. Like, he used to be head of product at Patreon. He goes, do you mind sitting down one day for, like, a Zoom call? Like, I love your passion for books. Me and my business partner, we have this idea about, like, creating a place like Patreon and that meets publishing and using the power of, like, creators like you to finally get credit for all the work you do. We essentially do all this free advertising, talking about the books we love online, and we don't ever get the kickback for it. We don't do it for the money. We do it because we love reading.
Right.
But like, sometimes it would be nice to say like, oh, I had a video go viral, and I sold 1,000 copies of books. I'm just spitballing a number,
Right.
and then you don't see a dime from it.
Yeah.
And so it's like really frustrating. And he was just like, can I just pick your brain to see if like this idea is even worth pursuing? Because like he's the business guy, and a tech guy. And he goes, I want to hear from book people like you and see if like, is this worth pursuing? And so like him and I, we sat down and we had like a really awesome call on Zoom, and he like asked me a bunch of questions, and I was like, this sounds amazing. And now Bindery is like a thing, and I'm a publisher with them, and I make exclusive content for my community, and they also get like an inside look at the publishing journey of the books that we acquire together, and it's so crazy.
I want to talk about those books.
Yeah.
We'll save that for a little bit later. But speaking of like the challenges of creation and being a creator, I think of any kind, but especially a book creator and being able to have that as a full-time job, like what are some of those challenges that you feel like you face, or the pressures of being a full-time content creator?
Number one, I would say, is constantly feeling like you owe people something, and that because I made this choice to be a content creator full time, is that like I have to show up every single day and not be able to take days off. And if you take a day off, or if like you don't put out a piece of content, or if it's not up to like your own standard, and like feeling like some way that I'm failing, or failing my community, or failing someone, which is like totally something I've projected onto myself because I know those things are not true. But like in this industry and like the line of work that I chose, like that is just like the nature of it, and I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
Compared to like other jobs that I've had in my life, it's like my success also depends on how people perceive me and how they view me. And luckily, like I'm not like a super insecure person, so I'm not really bothered by negative comments or negative responses to videos, which like I don't get terribly often, but like my success and my community success really does depend on like how people view me as a person, which is really weird to think about.
It is weird. I've never heard it quite said that way, but you're so right. Like that is actually something that's not common for most people.
If I post like a string of videos that don't do as well as I hoped, and even if I was like proud of those videos, like it feels like a slight on me as a person. Like, did I do something wrong? Like, why didn't these do well? Like, was it something I said? Like, is the algorithm just crap today? Therefore, it affects like your mental health, like that also.
Yeah. The algorithm piece is definitely hard because it's so outside of our control. Like, and I think that's something else that with a lot of people who are just, you go to work, you do your job, you go home, you get paid. And I think with creators, you are dependent on something completely outside of your control to allow people to see you, or you don't get paid. So it's like, that is a really challenging situation I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about.
Yeah, but I totally recognize that, like, I made this choice.
Sure.
I chose to have like inconsistent income. Social media is not as stable for some as it is for others. Like, so I totally recognize, and I try not to complain about it too much, but like, it is the reality of things. I never take this job for granted. I never will. Because like, my career has been like built by the community that I've cultivated over the past 3 years, and I love them so much. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. It does come with its challenges.
Let's talk about And the Sky Bled a little bit. I'm so excited. So what made you pick that book? Like, what about that story like drew you in? Like, why were you like, this is the one I want to publish first?
Going back to, I'm going to reference like one of your first questions when you're like, what makes like a favorite fantasy book? Like, what is like, I knew when I was reading In the Sky Bled, like the structure of the story wasn't necessarily like something new. Like, you've read a multi-POV fantasy book. You've read about people trying to find a magical object. But it was like the way that this book talked about hope and love and like our climate situation and like extractive capitalism and how this magical substance of Calor weaves through this city and everyone's life, creates and it destroys at the same time, and it just, the way everything comes together in the end, it like punched me in the skull. And I know reviewers and like now reviews are coming out for it, and I'm like, it's really satisfying to like find out that I was like right. Characters that you would die for, and it's like hard to put into words, because like now working on this book for 6 months and working with Sewell and working with Bindery makes me even love it even more than when I read it for the first time, just reading it on my Kindle at night when I had no one else to talk to about this book. It gives me like a newfound love for it. It was the characters, it was the magic, it's them fighting for the city they love and escaping from underneath like the pit of like oppression. It was just everything. And it like also combined elements of like some of my other favorite books, where like it's set in like an urban setting, much like Jade City by Fonda Lee, and it's like there's this magical substance, Calor, that holds everyone, almost like everyone captive, but it also like keeps the lights on and keeps the city alive, but like too much of it, there's negative consequences. And so like bad things happen to our characters as much as good things do too. It's also a darker fantasy, which is like, I don't read happy books. Sorry to spoil everyone. It also has like environmental impacts and climate destruction, much like the 5th season of N.K. Jemisin. And it's also got like a really interesting narrative structure, which really piqued my interest. I also knew when I was reading it, I was like, this needs to be on shelves. I feel like if I like this, and I felt very confident recommending it, I was like, people who like the books that I like will also love it. Which, like, after doing this for like almost 3 years, I feel very confident when I recommend a book. Like, I don't ever recommend books just like free willy-nilly.
Right.
And like, I know when something hits. And I was like, And the Sky Bled is going to be the one for people.
And how was the process of working with the author? Like, what did that look like?
My God, Zoranne's a dream. She's my dream girl. Not romantically, but like in friendship-wise.
Yeah.
No, she is just wonderful. At first, it was very like business, like wear a blazer, chat each other via email. And then we slowly became friends, because we would talk a lot via email every day. Sewell also has like a literary agent, and that's how her book got pitched to Bindery. So I was like talking to Sewell via her agent and through Bindery a lot. And then one day I was like, can I just have your phone number? Like, I feel like it's easier if we talk like this and work on like this book plan together. And so like from there we became like friends, and Sewell and I talk like every single day. We're like, did you see this email we got? We've got cover sketches in our inbox. Oh my God, did you see that Bindery wants to do this with the book? Did you see that this person put this review out? And it's like, we've cultivated like a really great relationship, and she's wonderful to work with. And I'm just like, I'm so grateful that like she's the author of the book, because I'm sure anyone would be great to work with. But like Sewell is so special. And her being like the first author that I'm working with, it's like all the lights are on, like everything works.
I'm just very excited to read it based on everything you
I'm
shared
so
because I feel
excited.
like I will love that. You have a book coming out. Then you also just announced your second book. So tell us about that.
Oh my gosh, book 2. It's crazy that I'm even saying that because I never thought that I'd be working on more than one book at once because I've like all my eggs have been in like the And the Sky Bled basket and I've been so focused on that. And so a few months ago when Bindery was like, you should start thinking about acquiring a second book. And I was like, what do you mean? I have a book. They're like, yeah, but we want you to keep the ball rolling. And so like I wasn't even sure that I would find a second book, and if I didn't, it was gonna be okay because like I had And the Sky Bled, still giving my all to that book because I love it so much and I'm championing that. And I was like, you know what, but I'll just read some manuscripts. I'll see what I find, knowing that I was going to be picky because like I don't want to just publish books to publish books, nor do I want to like just work on that for like the money because like I do transparently, like I do make royalties from book sales. But I started reading manuscripts and I started getting like submissions from literary agents probably back in January.
Okay.
And none of them were really like hitting for me because like usually for submissions you get a pitch letter from the agent.
Right.
And it's basically like an elevator pitch about the book saying like, I represent this author, this book has these tropes, it's this comp title, it's like this book meets this book, and here's the synopsis. We hope you'll check it out. And none of them were really doing it for me. Like some of them piqued my interest, but I was just like not enough to like spend not months, but like to spend enough time to like read 100,000 words, okay?
Yeah.
And so then Bindery ran their second pitch fest where authors who did not have literary agents or representation could submit their finished manuscript and they could submit their book. It's being like, hey, I am this person, I want to, and they could submit to any one of Bindery's imprints. And I got, in 3 days time, I got over 40 submissions.
Oh my gosh.
Just from indie authors. I was like, holy crap. Now, I cannot read 40 books.
Right.
So, and I read 40 pitch letters. Very similar in the style that the literary agents gave. And 4 stuck out to me that I wanted to keep reading. And so I started reading those 4, kind of like I read a chapter here, read a chapter of book B, read a chapter of book C. And whenever I got to a point where I was like, pass, I would go next book. But one book stuck with me.
Okay.
I know I'm giving you the long-winded answer, but I like telling the story.
No, I love this.
And so I kept reading this book. And next thing I knew, I finished this book at 4 a.m. Tears are streaming down my face. And for those of you who don't know me, like, I am not a good eyeball reader. Like, I mainly read via audiobook. So, like, reading all these manuscripts was, like, a challenge in and of itself because, like, eyeball reading is just not my forte. And next thing I knew, the next morning, I emailed the president of Bindery, Meg. I said, put an offer on this book. Like, I need it yesterday. The world needs this book. And then today, I finally announced that the second book that Fantasy and Frens will be publishing together as a community is called Crueler Mercies by Marin Chase.
Hey.
And I am so excited because it is very different from And the Sky Bled in a lot of ways. It's still a standalone. It's still a darker side of fantasy, but it is a story of grief and vengeance. And it's sapphic.
I love that.
It is perfect for fans of like Ava Reid and S.T. Gibson and Samantha Shannon. And I'm just like so over the moon. I can't even believe that like this is real life.
And so when is that one coming out? Or do you guys have dates for that or anything?
So, no, I don't have like a hard publishing date. Like And the Sky Bled, And the Sky Bled will be out October 15th. We're looking sometime spring 2025. That sounds so far away because like it's April 29th now. But
fast.
a year from now, a year in publishing is tomorrow. Like I've got print arcs of And the Sky Bled. Like the fact that I've been working on this book for 6 months blows my mind. The community is like, how is it like publication in 6 months? I'm like, you're telling me. I'm also excited to like showcase like the range that Fantasy and Frens will have. Because like I said, And the Sky Bled and Crueler Mercies are very different from each other, but I feel like people will like both books.
Well, you seem to love like, and similar to me, like that gritty factor in fantasy books. It's like neat, and it sounds like both of those.
That's a good word. Like
both of those have that, even though they may be very different stories.
I love fantasy books that don't shy away from like harsh truths. And I really love how they like showcase like the grittiness of like what life is really like and how dark of a hole people can get into, and like more importantly how they get themselves like out of that hole. Because very much in the Sky Bled, our characters, like the 3 characters we follow, Zane, Erevan, and Anastasia, they're in very different places in society, and like they're down bad in like their own ways, but they're also trying to find the light at the end of the tunnel, and they're trying to save their city, whether it be for themselves or for different reasons. Whereas like in the Sky Bled, we follow our main character Vita. She is really stuck in her grief, and the only way she's going to get out of it is by getting revenge, essentially. But also the people she meets along the way help her realize and process her grief, because at the beginning of the story, I mean, I haven't really talked about the synopsis, like her mother is killed by her father's hand. So like the king literally kills the queen, and Vita witnesses that as a 9-year-old girl, and so she's stuck with that image in her head for the rest of her life. And the grief that Vita goes through reminded me a lot of my own, because like I have like my mom has passed away. Not to make like this conversation super sappy and sad,
No,
but like the way Vita
context,
is, and like the thoughts she has and the things she does like really resonated with me, and I think they'll resonate with a lot of people, especially if they've lost someone close to them. And I was just like, oh. And whenever really human things happen in a fantasy environment, like, because fantasy does like often reflect and talk about things that we experience in like our real world.
Yeah.
And does it in a lot of ways that you wouldn't actually think about without that context. Both books are brilliant.
I can't wait to read them.
I know. The hardest part about this working with Bindery is keeping secrets.
Talk about it, right?
No, and I'm like, I'm a nosy ass bitch. Like, I want to know everything. And so like my big part of my job is literally keeping secrets.
Oh my gosh. The secret keeper.
I know! So I kept the Cruel Mercy secret for like a month. I kept the And the Sky Bled secret for like another month, and then I had to keep the rolling announcements for And the Sky Bled. Like I still have secrets for And the Sky Bled that I can't talk about.
Wait, you do?
I do. It's like not only am I finding stories that I feel like would have been overlooked, and we're publishing authors from like marginalized identities and communities. It's like they are all getting the front list treatment. And so that's what's really cool. And a lot of times BIPOC authors are often relegated to like the mid list, where they don't get to be like a front list title, like Fourth Wing or Sarah J Maas, where like they're getting like all the stops, like a tour, they're getting special sprayed edges, they're getting all of the marketing buzz, you see ads for it everywhere, you're getting like some authors don't even get print arcs. So what's really cool about this is that all of those authors who are getting published by Bindery this fall and forthcoming are getting that like royal treatment, and that makes me so happy to see. All of the attention to detail that's been given to And the Sky Bled and the other books that are coming from Bindery has just been so special. And that also makes me happy as a creator, and it makes me very in a tastemaker, and it makes me confident in like the decisions that I make and the stuff that I get to share with my Bindery community, because they're the ones that are making this happen, and they're the ones who get to see the publishing news before it ever goes live publicly. My Bindery community found out about book 2 like last week, and now I'm just sharing it today with my Instagram and my TikTok.
I think that's what's so interesting about, because I remember when the announcement started to go out about Bindery, it felt very disruptive. And I know that's like such a buzzword, but I'm in San Francisco, so I'm going to use it. But I think having worked in tech for over a decade and seeing how quickly and fast things move, and then to like have the bookish creator side of things and start learning more about publishing and how archaic and slow things are, or I don't want to say out of touch, but like out of date of things. Like things are just a lot slower, and like they're you know, a lot of these publishing houses that aren't necessarily using like the latest and greatest tools, or like publishing hasn't had any sort of disruption in a really long time. And I think that's what was so cool. It felt like something new and fresh, and I think not just bringing home like and giving a platform for marginalized voices, which is obviously much needed, but I think in addition to that, it's just a really interesting new model. It's been really wonderful.
You're saying all the right words, because all the traditional publishing houses, I love you. Please keep working with me. You pay my bills.
Yes, we love you.
So like they rely on our free labor, and they rely on our creators to have a video that goes viral.
Right.
Like, do you remember when Eamon from Eamon's Books made that video about the invisible life of Addie LaRue? Mm-hmm. And that was like one of her first videos that like went viral. That book sold out everywhere.
Yeah.
for months. Nobody could keep it on shelves. And I was just like, that was like when I first really realized the power of community and book talk. Publishers capitalized on that. But like, did you think Eamon got a kickback from that? I mean, now she's super successful. This is her job too. But like they rely on us to make those viral videos to sell their books for them. And like, we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah,
we're not going to stop.
We do it because we love it. And I think like you said this earlier, like,
and they know that.
We're not doing it for the love of money at all. It's very much because we want to share stories that we love with people and have them discover those stories and be able to have friends to talk about it with. Like that's the goal. Hopefully Bindery is going to be that kind of push in that direction of like, hey, this is what's possible. This is what you could be doing. Yeah. And I think publishers know, and Bindery definitely knows, that like having something backed by people and a community gives you longevity and will be successful no matter what. But I also think what's really cool about Bindery is that for the books that get submitted to me and other tastemakers is like, so we do get submissions from literary agents, but like stuff like how I picked Crueler Mercies from Pitch Fest. Like I was talking to Marin, the author. She was just like, I feel like this book has a home on shelves and with readers. She goes, I just need a reader to read it first. Because she queried Crueler Mercies to literary agents and she didn't have any luck. Because like, and I feel like maybe a lot of authors feels this way. They're like, I just need a reader to read it. Yeah. And I'm sure you see, and we've seen that with self-published titles get traditionally published for like Olive E. Blake and Danielle L. Jensen and now Sarah A. Parker. We've seen those books find readers first and then publishing second. Yeah. Versus the other way around, because like when you get a traditionally published deal, like there's, you know, how many hoops authors have to jump through to even get their book considered to be picked up. And Marin was just like, I need a reader to read this and love it. And that's exactly what happened when I found Crueler Mercies. And that's exactly what happened for And the Sky Bled, because they queried, Sewell's author queried all of like the major publishers, and like it was going to die on submission. And they were actually going to pull it from Bindery too. They're like, maybe this just isn't the one. And I was just like, what? Like, I promise it's the right one.
Yeah, no, I think what's really cool about Bindery is like, yes, they are a publisher. Everything goes through readers first, because BookTok knows what will sell, and BookTok knows a good book. And screw all the people who say, BookTok lied to me. BookTok recommends the same 5 books. I don't.
Oh.
You don't.
Don't get me started on that. I feel like the algorithm will show you what you interact with and what you are watching. So if you don't want to see those 5 books, keep scrolling. Like, don't leave a comment saying how much you dislike that book or you don't want to see it, because then it's just going to show you more of those videos. And you can curate your For You page to show you the type of stuff. I mean, BookTok, I think people don't realize that BookTok is so massive in terms of just, there's literary fiction creators and there's mystery creators and thriller creators, like fantasy creators, like it's contemporary romance creators and whatever. And I think a lot of times it seems like there's this sense of like, or especially with like all the articles that get published, it just makes it seem like it's just only romance readers or like dark romance readers. They have a home on BookTok as well, but that's not the only community. And I think that's something that gets misconstrued about BookTok a lot.
And I think you're definitely right, and I agree with everything you said. And I think a lot of people do not get past that first layer.
Yes. You have to curate it.
Which is romance, which is your intro romantasy, your dark romance. I think they are like the first ring. I think they're the first ring. And I don't think a lot of people push past that first ring if those books are not what they're looking for. Because if you're looking for romance, if you're looking for entry-level romantasy, if you're looking for Haunting Adeline, first ring of BookTok is going to be for you. But if you want to get a little deeper, you want to find your people, you got to push past what you don't want to see. You got to keep going, because then you'll find me, then you'll find you, then you'll find Jason, you'll find Eamon, you'll find so many amazing creators that I never would have found. I mean, it's been 3 years now, but I'm still discovering new creators every single day. Now my BookTok feed is very curated, and I barely get, and I don't get books that I don't want to read. And like you got to get past the first circle of hell. Romance and romantasy is not hell, but like you gotta get, if we're talking about like the 7 circles of hell of Dante's Inferno, you gotta get past the first level, babe.
You gotta get past the first level. I love that. It's true though, and I think too, like once you do and once you start, like reading is having a renaissance, which is amazing and very cool. A lot of people are reading and picking up books for the first time in a decade, you know, like, or longer. Like,
Or
I
adult-
literally,
yeah.
yeah, I had a high school friend. Now I'm old, so that was a long time ago.
Sorry.
And they messaged me on Facebook the other day. I haven't talked to this person since I looked at the last message. It was like 2006 was the last time I spoke to this person. So almost 20 years ago. And she said like, "Oh my gosh, I saw that you have been posting book content. Like, can you give me some recs? I just read, you know, XYZ. Like, this is the first time I'm reading." She's like, "I used to read constantly in high school and then I just stopped." You know, and she has kids now and, you know, life got in the way or whatever, but she's like starting to read again. And so I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, I have so many books that you should read." And it was so much fun, but it's like, that's the beauty of book talk and actually diving a little deeper. It's like, yeah, you have those kind of beginner recs, which I think are great and, you know, can get people back into reading. And then it's like, you have to decide, what do you love about those books and what do you not like about them? And then start figuring out like, what are your preferred genres? And I think people don't necessarily go past that sometimes.
Yes, and I want to add more to that. So, like, how people find like the first ring of book talk. Like, I found like my first intro to fantasy, and how it is for a lot of people nowadays, was like ACOTAR by Sarah J. Maas.
Okay.
And like, not a lot of people know this, but like, I was reading. I don't know when you read ACOTAR, but I was reading them like as they came out each year.
I read them before I joined Book Talk.
Okay,
I
so
had
like,
a friend recommend them. I think I'd already read everything but maybe Kingdom of Ash before I joined Book Talk. So
okay,
I like read most of, so then when I went to Book Talk and people were talking about them, because that was like, I mean, it continues to have staying power, but it was obviously like much, much popular. It was like that, Grishaverse and Song of Achilles were all like the 2020.
yeah. ACOTAR was my jumping point. How it is for like not a lot of people now
people.
into fantasy nowadays. And
Yeah.
it's like, so when I realized, I was like, oh, some people like want to stay in like the romantasy lane. So like, what's like ACOTAR? And so they jump to like the next romantasy series, which could be like The Serpent and the Wings of Night or like The Bridge Kingdom.
Right.
Where I was like, okay, I want more fantasy, less romance. This was great, but like I need more swords. I need more. And so then I was like, okay, then I found Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. And so then that kind of like kickstarted my journey from there. And then I was like, okay, give me the name. And then I read The Name of the Wind. I read other books like that. And so then I kind of started straying away from romantasy. Now I've eased back into romantasy since being on Book Talk. But like our jumping points for people are very similar. We do them at different times, but you just got to decide like, okay, if you want romantasy, then you got to go the romantasy route on Book Talk. If you want more fantasy, then you got to go deeper into the fantasy territory. And you'll find what you love. But just I hate it when people complain about like what they don't find when they don't even go looking for it.
You gotta look for it. I find that I like all of those things, right? Like I love reading romantasy, but I love a good grimdark fantasy. I love a John Gwynne. I love Mistborn. Like I love, and that's, I wouldn't even say Mistborn's necessarily that dark, but like will rip your heart out. Like I love those kinds of stories, but then I also will read like business and memoirs. Like I don't, and I think that's
got range.
I've got range. And so I feel like that's been really hard on Book Talk, because Book Talk likes to put you in a box. Like they want to know like, okay, I go to this channel and this is the type of rec that I'm going to get every time. And I don't do that. And so I think that's a challenge there for creators. So I guess as a very successful creator, like what are a couple of tips that you would give people who are just starting out their creator journey on Book Talk or Bookstagram or BookTube? We'll like throw them all in.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of the things I'm going to say are going to be easier said than done, but just post, do it.
Yeah.
When you're first starting out, and like the algorithm, so I started posting like 3 years ago, and so the algorithm 3 years ago is very different than what it is today. Today, I would say it's harder to go viral, and you have to put, it's more quality over quantity.
Yeah.
And so if I were starting a Book Talk account today, my advice to say just post would remain the same. I would also say that nobody can do what you do like you do. And so like I read and I recommend mainly fantasy books. I read other genres, but I mainly stay in the fantasy realm. And I know other people read and recommend fantasy books and they talk about them, but nobody reviews books like I do. Same way like nobody reviews books like you do. And so like even if you feel like you're quote unquote copying someone, you're most likely not, unless you are. Don't do that.
Don't do that. Yes.
But like nobody will talk about books like you do. Nobody can bring the same energy to the table like you do. But I would say like if I was starting out today, I would make sure that the quality of your video is crisp, it's clean, it's well lit. make sure, not necessarily have like a scripted video, but like have an idea of what you're gonna say, because like some people don't like rambly things. But also like stay true to yourself, which sounds so lame, but it's so true. I'm speaking for me. Like a lot of times people aren't showing up for the books that I'm recommending necessarily, but they're showing up for me.
Yeah.
And they show up because they like me, and they like the energy I bring, and they like that I have a silly goose time. And people have stayed, so much so that they give me money every month, which is cool, thank you. People show up for you, and so don't be afraid to be weird and be you, and let your little freak flag fly. But also just, like, be passionate and be confident, because like I said, nobody can do what you do like you do.
Mm-hmm.
And persona that you see of me online isn't much different from the me you see in real life. I mean, we've met in real life. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
I would totally agree with that. It was great. Please come back. We had so much fun.
And I don't know. So it's just like, be confident. Don't spend too long opening a box, like literally cutting open a box if you're going to do an unboxing. Don't film the whole thing of you pulling the tissue paper and the worms out of the box. Like, get to the point, babe. That's another thing. Get to the point. You got 3 seconds to keep my attention.
So true.
Another great tip is don't be afraid to cross-post. I post the same shit every single day. Whatever I post on TikTok is the same thing I post on Instagram that same day. And now I have a lot of the same followers on Instagram and TikTok, but like I have 2 completely different audiences on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. I post a lot of videos to YouTube Shorts because now with the clock app maybe going at a being banned, I'm like trying to harness the power of YouTube, which has also been great. But like, don't be afraid to post the same things across platforms, because you're going to find completely different people. And you're going to get a completely different set of comments, completely different set of feedback, completely different new followers. And that's also been great. So now you're building your communities in several different places. Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid to like post similar long form videos of videos you've already posted on TikTok or Instagram, because like I said, different people are going to find them and you don't know who's going to enjoy what. And don't be afraid to try something new, because like you don't know what's going to do well. You don't know what's not going to do well. So like the world's your oyster. Like you never know. I never knew that like a video talking about 5-star books was going to go viral and noticed by Hank Green, but it did.
You never know. You never know. I think that point about just posting, like just putting yourself out there is, it's simple, but it's true. It's like, I think a lot of people are just afraid to take that first step.
Yeah, and like it's hard to put yourself out there and be perceived by people, especially like a lot of readers. We're introvert, but now we've built a community. You focus on building a community over going viral. That's also a big one. Like my account has not grown exponentially in the past 6 months. Like I've been only getting maybe a few thousand followers a month, and you know what? That's okay. But I'm building my community. And that gives me staying power, and that gives me longevity, and that gives me the ability to publish books, keep talking about books, get brand deals, versus like, I mean, going viral is nice, and it helps me give it an influx of followers, but like a lot of times those people don't stay a while. They're just visitors. We're just ships passing in the night. Yeah. They're not docking at my bay to stay. I don't know why I just gave you like a boat metaphor, but like that's
ships, pirates, I don't know. We can
so like I haven't gone super viral in a while, but like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm getting people joining my Discord. I'm getting people coming from TikTok over to Instagram. Then they pop over to YouTube, but then I get those people to join my bindery, which I would prefer over anything else.
I'd love to get into talking about some recs / books you're loving right now. What are some books that you're most looking forward to for the rest of the year?
Oh, wow. I'm pulling up my story graph right now.
Okay. I love it.
Okay, so upcoming, I can't lie to you. I'm really frothing at the mouth for The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. Oh my god. Can't wait for Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson, which is the 5th book in the Stormlight Archive. I can't wait for And the Sky Bled by S. Hattie. I can't wait for that to be in the world. I'm super excited for Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed, because I am an Ava Reed stan. Oh god, what else is coming out this year? The Lotus Empire by Tasha Suri. Black Sun from H.M. Long. That's coming in July.
Yeah.
There's a new book that just came out that I'm like waiting to arrive at my doorstep. It's The Silver Blood Promise by James Logan.
Okay.
It's the start to a new fantasy series. It follows a thief, political conspiracies. That one just came out like 2 weeks ago. I don't know, there's so many good books.
There are a lot of good ones coming out this year that I'm very, very excited about. So what's been your best read so far this year?
Hands down, The Will of the Many by James Islington.
Okay, everybody keeps talking about this book. So
Well,
what
they're right.
what is it about this book? Like, should I go into it blind or
Yes.
okay? I almost got it on Indie Bookstore Day, and then I ended up getting the Tainted Cup instead.
Also,
That's
one of my
also
favorites.
also been very high on my TBR. And I'm like, okay. When I checked out, he's like, oh, this book is so good. He's like, have you read all of his other stuff? I'm like, no, tell me more. Like, it was so sweet.
A dream of mine is to have a fantasy bookstore. I feel like that'd be so much fun. I would love it to be a coffee shop by day and a bar by night.
Yes. Yeah, I love that idea.
Okay,
Just make
back
it
to the
happen.
Will of the Many. Back to the Will of the Many.
Okay, yes.
So I have not read anything by I haven't read the Lycanius trilogy by James Islington, but like I got caught in the hype storm. Everybody was like, it was sold out. I'm like, everybody's like, Will of the Many, the book of the year at the end of the year of 2023. And I was just like, I didn't get it to it by the end of the year. And so my book club voted to read it for January. Oh my God, and what a month it was. It was like 5 stars across the board for everyone. It checks so many boxes. Okay. We've got a really compelling main character in Vis. We've got a school setting. We've got an estranged heir to the throne. We've got a revolution. We've got political conspiracies. We've got a really, really weird and cool and complex magic system that isn't fully explained in book 1, but you just gotta roll with it. Okay. And you've got an ending that blows your socks off. Like, so much so, like, when I finished that book, I had to go reread the last 50 pages just to make sure, like, I understood what was happening. I didn't, but I tried anyways. I don't know, and it checks those boxes of, like, what people love in fantasy books. And I think that's why it's so widely loved, is because it gets a lot of those things right. It doesn't lag in places. The pacing is there. The audiobook is great, and it's just, there's twists, there's turns, the pacing is relentless. You literally don't know what's going to happen next. And, like, everybody who said it's, like, their favorite book of the year is right, because, it's mine. I'm not the end-all be-all, but, like, there's no way you don't like it.
I'm so excited to read it. I have his other, like, the Lycanus trilogy. I have that on my shelf, but I haven't read it yet. So I think I'll read this first before I read that.
Yeah, it's also just, like, really well written. And it's digestible, and it's just so good.
You have some questions that people submitted.
Oh my God! People ask me questions?
They asked you questions. So Lisa asks, she says, I love Zoranne. And then she said, please ask her what her plans are for her imprint, how many books are in the pipeline, etc. So we kind of touched on that a little bit, but if you can share anything that you would like to do for the future.
Yeah. Plans for the imprint. So my plans are whatever Bindery's plans are. So right now I'm working on 2 books, one for fall, one for spring. And I think that is the hope to continue that. I think that's our plan, to continue to do so. Definitely want to keep reading submissions whenever they come my way. Definitely want to keep finding those diamonds in the rough. But yeah, no, it's honestly it's to keep it's to keep the ball rolling, to keep highlighting voices and authors for people who we feel like were, like, passed up either by publishing or marginalized identities, and to, like, support those books and find a home for them on shelves, and to keep sharing that love with the community first, because they're the ones who are also supporting this book in a way as well as they support me. And so that's, like, really been awesome. And that's what I want to keep doing.
This one's so much fun. So Kristen's asking if you could put together your own found family crew from across series. Who would your top 3 picks be?
Oh my God. Like, I get to pick 3 books, or I have to pick 3 characters?
3 characters. Or you could, let's say 5. I'll give you 5, because I feel like it's
I
really
don't even think my characters would get along with each other. Okay, Orca from The Shadow of the Gods.
Love.
I think about Kazbrecker a lot.
Okay.
Like, I think about Kazbrecker a lot. Probably Hilo from Jade City. Oh my God. I'm on the spot. Oh, Cohen from The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. So we got 2 John Gwynnes. Vin from Mistborn. I feel like I'm just naming my favorite characters. These people are not getting along.
They're not going to get along at all.
But I'm not sure anyone would survive the day. And then, was that 4?
That was 4. Yeah.
Oh, God. And then Kaladin from Stormlight.
Oh.
Kaladin and Syl. You can't Kaladin without Syl. So you get Kaladin and Syl in one.
Okay, I'll allow it.
Those are my favorite characters off the top of my dome.
I love that.
I don't think they'd necessarily be a family, but
no, a dysfunctional family. It's fine.
Dysfunctional.
Yeah. If you could be in any fantasy world, under the context that you would have to be involved in the plot, where would you choose to go?
Oh, easy. I love this question because I know my answer to it. I choose life, so I'm going to Planet Thune, where Legends and Lattes is set.
That's amazing.
I'm living my life out at Viv's coffee shop.
Amazing.
I'll even seek employment there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to battle. I'm not going to war. No, I choose life. So I'm going to a coffee shop, babe.
I love it. Okay, well, speaking of life, you're also getting married soon. Or, well, planning a wedding.
Okay, so I'm getting married June of 2025.
Okay.
Which does make me a little stressed when I think about Crueler Mercies being published sometime next spring. So it's going to be a very busy first half of 2025. Like when I saw you last year in May, I was not engaged yet. Like all my friends, my family, they're like, Jarrett's going to propose when you're on vacation. And I'm like, no, he's not. And I knew he wasn't because we actually went like ring shopping like a little bit before vacation. So he was not going to have a ring by then. And I don't think he wanted to put the stress of like carrying a ring around an airport and in luggage and stuff. But so he proposed last June. It was very intimate. It was just us at our house, and it was really, really cute. But yeah, so I'm getting married next June, and I'm so excited. And we've been in the throes of wedding planning, and I went dress shopping a few weeks ago, and I don't think my wedding's going to be very bookish. I haven't decided, like, I don't think we have a theme for our wedding. I might include books in very small, dainty ways.
Yeah.
But I envision like the venue we're getting married at is like very like industrial and minimal and like antique, and it's really cool. Probably decorate around that, but yeah, no, I'm very excited. I don't talk about Jarrett online a lot because like he doesn't want to be online, which is like totally cool.
That's totally fair, yeah.
But no, I'm very excited. Thank you so much.
And then I guess the last thing, I call them rapid reveals that I ask everybody that are just like quick things.
Let's do it.
Your current read.
My current read, got a few. I'm reading Dragon Rider by Taryn Matheru. I'm listening to You Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. Okay. And then I'm also reading sometimes Of War and Ruin by Ryan Cahill, which is like a part of The Bound and the Broken, which is like a self-published fantasy series that I love.
This is a series that you've been talking a bunch about, right? Didn't the Broken Binding do a set?
Yes.
Okay.
They're doing an ongoing set, yeah.
Oh, that's on my list. It's on my list.
It's so good.
Okay, so what is your favorite place to read? Like, where do you prefer to read?
In my bed at night, horizontal, with the lights off on my Kindle.
Okay, and then your coffee order.
Ooh, it changes a lot, but lately from Dunkin' Donuts, I've been getting a cold brew with 3 pumps of caramel and 3 pumps hazelnut and cream.
You did kind of spill the beans on this one already, but your favorite format to read in?
Audiobooks all the way. But it's kind of like a co-reading experience where if I'm at home, then I'll listen to the audiobook and I'll read along with the physical book because it helps a lot with my ADHD.
I feel like that is honestly the superior way to read. I'm just going to say that. Like, I love when I have an audiobook and a physical book. Because then I feel like I remember more of it too.
Yeah. It also helps me not be distracted. Because then I've got like my ears are occupied and my eyes are occupied. So my brain doesn't have anywhere to wander off to. So I can actually focus on like the content of the book.
What was your last reread?
She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. I reread that for one of my Bindery subscribers because I do like an annotated book giveaway every other month where like whoever wins the giveaway, they can pick a book for me to read and annotate for them. And the person chose She Who Became the Sun. So I got to reread and annotate that for her, and it was really, really cool. And it was even better the second time around.
That's the best when you feel like a reread just hits even harder first time. I see this constantly on my For You page, and I've done it too, but you always feel like, oh, I want to go back and reread like this book for the first time and like have that same feeling. But sometimes a reread can be even better. Yeah,
no, I definitely appreciate parts that maybe I didn't love as much before, and I understand like why the author made certain choices. And I also feel like I pick out something new each time, whether it be like thematic or character development or whatnot. Or it's nice to see foreshadowing for things that were coming that like broke my heart in the first place. I'll be like, this is why you started to hurt me.
That's the worst. You're like, oh, you were planning this all along.
Yeah.
Last question is, what books are on your bedside table right now?
Ooh, my current reads, Dragon Rider and Can't Spell Treason Without Tea. Good question.
It's a fun one, yeah. Because I feel like You also, I feel like as a reader, like most people have books on their nightstand table, and but, like it could be books you like aren't reading and just kind of been there, or it could be your current reads or whatever. So everybody kind of always answers a little differently, which is fun.
I love that.
Thank you so much. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
Thanks so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe.